needed him. Ready to use his mop to vanquish the threat, he ran over and looked in. Several men and women in high-collared burgundy uniforms bustled about, while others sat watching three-dimensional images. 4 officers gathered around one display, pointing. Ken craned over Captain Keiko's shoulder to get a better view. The projected form of an adult, purebred male with long, glossy black hair was looking right at them, head leaning forward. Illuminated by the late morning sun, his bushy black eyebrows scrunched together and shifted. Though his face placed him in his 20s, his eyes held the wisdom of an elder. "Pan back 3 meters," a major ordered the projector's AI. The man shrank, revealing him to be wearing curious black robes. They looked like they were right out of the old samurai dramas, save for the decorative silver border along the hems. Staff in hand, his eyes followed them. The shorter passers-by in fashionably bright-colored clothes gave him a wide berth and pretended not to stare. "Could the scanners be wrong?" the major asked. The lieutenant beside him shook her head. "The scanners do not detect an ID chip." Ken patted his body. He and every other human, purebred and ex-human alike, had a nanochip that stored everything about them, from their date of birth to the last shirt they'd bought. "That can't be right," the major said. "He must have found a way to deactivate or remove the chip." That couldn't be right either. Ken's forehead bunched up. The chip circulated in the blood, making it impossible to find without technology only the government had. The major turned to another station. "Specialist Hernandez, run facial recognition. Corporal Wilson, run spectral DNA analysis." "Yes, sir," a man and woman said in unison. The woman's fingers waved through the air, and in front of her, 2-dimensional faces flashed over each other. They looked so similar as the images slowed, like the stick figures Ken used to draw and flip through in the corner of his textbook for classic languages. "Well?" The major put his hands on his hips. "Is it like the girl who turned up at Honoji Temple last week? Nothing in the database?"
"Yes, but I'm searching deeper in the older archives."
Specialist Hernandez's hand swiped through the display again, and a mix of both the alphabet and the old script danced through the air. Kanji, they'd once called it. Ken shuddered. Studying the classics from actual paper books had been considered spirit-building to imbue a sense of pride in the Asiatic cultures that once flourished here, even though everyone used the planetary government's sanctioned alphabet now. He turned back to the image of the stranger, who looked to be speaking to a young woman. Words flashed above her, identifying her as Yuki Papadopoulos. "Have the closest team intercept," the major said. "Computer, transfer sound to main speakers." In the display, the woman waved a hand back and forth and shook her head as the man's speech came out in a lilting mix of sounds. He was speaking the old language, just like the strange girl from last week who'd turned up out of nowhere, stolen a glowing blue sphere from an old well, and then vanished into a folding space aperture. Analysis of her skin particle DNA didn't match anyone going as far back as DNA records went. An algorithmic analysis of mitochondrial DNA predicted her maternal line had died out 3,000 years ago. Still, her genetics had proved one thing. Unlike the vast majority of ex-humans today, she'd been purebred, like Ken. "It must be another like that girl," a sergeant said. "Maybe," the major snorted. "The Illustre knows something about it, but they won't tell us. Computer, translate." The stranger approached another man and bowed in the old way. Just like in the really old movies from the great empire known as Shaw Brothers, the words coming out of his mouth didn't match the movement of his lips. "Excuse me, I am looking for Honoji." Ken's heart raced. Nobody else but him would have remembered Honoji if the strange girl hadn't turned up last week. Since then, it had been all over the news. Investigative reporters had dug up old records showing that Honoji Academy had once been an elementary school. It, in turn, had been built over the ruins of an old temple where the famous warlord Oda Nobunaga was betrayed by one of his retainers 1,300 years before. "DNA analysis shows he is also purebred," the sergeant said. Just like the strange girl, and Ken.